There's very few things more frustrating in life than, I guess, building a business, achieving something, to wake up one day and feeling a lack of satisfaction and feeling off, feeling alone, or even feeling really lost, because there's it's doubly frustrating because you've spent so much time pursuing the thing you said you wanted to achieve. You made an assumption along the way that perhaps once you achieve that thing, that life would feel, sound, and look different to you. And maybe one of the reasons that you went around pursuing this and building this is because you told yourself you needed freedom, and you assumed that your business project would actually give you the freedom that you wanted. And of course, there's different types of freedom. So you're probably good at beating the shit out of yourself for this. I can tell you right now, I don't want to beat you up, because I cannot beat you up any more than you're probably capable of beating yourself up. There's no words I can muster to make you feel bad about yourself that you wouldn't already have invented. And I'm sure you're doubling down, and you're even better than I am at that. So I won't waste my time with that. What I will share with you is, if this lands for you, if you are somebody that is either one, feeling that you have landed into a place like that, or that the thing you're building might actually end up bringing you in the direction that you deep down intuitively you already know that if you just keep building what you're building, there's a very high likelihood that it's not going to give you the sense of fulfillment and peace of mind and togetherness that you actually believe it will, or believe at one point it would. Because you're smart enough now, you're awakening to the reality that the narrative that you've been sold, or the narrative that you sold yourself around your business, just doesn't feel right anymore. Okay. So that's kind of the conversation I want to have today. And I want to kind of take that assumption off the table that, once we build something, everything's going to be awesome, because for most people it's not. And how do I know? Is because number one is I've experienced it personally, and number two is I deal with it every single day with clients, many of which have built something really special or really cool or significant, and they've come to me because there's just something off there, and there has been something off for quite some time. There's something they've forgotten. There's a step they didn't take. There's a misalignment. There's a road they took when in reality it should have been a different one. And I just want to shine a light in this conversation, if for no other reason, just to let you know you're not on your own. It's not to feel bad about this. You haven't wasted your time. And the answer to this is not doubling down on your current business and going all in and going further into a rabbit hole, assuming it'll solve a problem, in the future that you have today. So it takes a lot of courage to begin to realize that the lives that we've created, the businesses that we've built, aren't actually giving us the things that we need in the world. Not the things that we want, but the things that we truly need. So I want to give you a little bit of a sense of how I look at purpose in the world, okay? It's a question that seems to elude and haunt a lot of people, like, what's my purpose, etc. And I want to basically just kind of share one very simple thing, and that is, in my experience, is business success doesn't equal living purpose. And yet we often assume it will, and then we're deeply disappointed when it doesn't. And I applaud anybody who has business success. I mean, fair play, amazing, well done. But my experience tells me that we often overstay our welcome on what I call the second mountain, and we don't transition to the third. And nor am I saying that every single person must. I do a monthly call a Brave Conversation, where basically I jump in a call for free for 45 minutes. If you're part of our email list, you can just log into it or get notified and then just register for it, etc. And it's basically, I started in COVID when, I was on my own, when lots of people were on their own. It was my way of basically saying, hey, I'm going to show up for you, and let's show up for each other. And then I just kind of kept it going. And we tend not to sell shit that you don't need. We don't tend to position a lot of our work. We might just mention an event that's coming up. But each month I take a conversation that I feel is important in the world, and I shine a light on that and bring it to the world. And one of the things we talked about recently was really around this idea of impact and courage and everything else. And someone submitted a question of which you can do. And they said, does everyone need to make an impact? And of course, the answer is, you don't need to do anything. So the answer is no. But my experience is, if you don't, it comes at a cost. And it comes at a cost to not just humanity, but it comes at a cost to you. Because I do believe at some level our individual purposes in this world and collective purpose is to leave the world in a better place than we found it. Now, maybe that's an idealistic and naive approach to life. And if it is, that's me. Okay, that's me. Hands up, both hands up. But I do believe there's something in that, whether it's through the lens of children, whether it's through the lens of your community, whether it doesn't have to be scaled at such a significant level. But let me get back to this amount analogy. And at one point, I've been using mountain analogies for a very, very, very long time, for probably 20 years. My very first live event, I believe, was called Base Camp. And then I ran a mastermind called Everest. And then I ran another event called K2 for couples, etc. So I love mountain analogies, but when I use a mountain analogy, I don't want to get across this like scaling and pushing and death zones and Everest and, half dying and the treacherous nature of it. That's not the energy. It's really just a physical metaphor for life. And I'm a visual learner, so physical things and imagery is really important for me to contextualize things for myself, but also hopefully for people. The first mountain for me is about me. The first mountain for me and for most of us in life it's the me mountain, or Mount Mimi as I call it. Like, it's the mountain where we're trying to figure out our shit. We're trying to, pay off our college debt or whatever it is, and we're trying to get our first job, or we're trying to start our first app, or we're trying to start our new business, or whatever it happens to be. The second mountain is when we start to kind of evolve and mature into this us energy, and we end up having often families, or we bring a partner into our life. So it's a kind of an us energy, and we build sometimes a business with a culture around it. So it's very much a building of us. And what we tend to do is as we start to mature and we start to grow and we start to be introspective, we start to ask ourselves more meaningful life questions, impact starts to emerge in this phase. And what we look to often is as a way to handle that impact is we look at deriving that impact through the lens of the things that we're already doing within my family, as a better father, or our mother, our partner, etc. Or we try to derive impact through the culture of the organization that we're running. And that's brilliant. That needs to be applauded. I know lots of great entrepreneurs, clients of mine who have incredible cultures, who look after their people, and they are making an impact not just in the world, but in the worlds of the people in which they look after, and as a result in their own world. And if you just live and die in the second mountain, brilliant. There's no judgment here. Okay. Again, I cannot judge you as effectively as you can judge yourself. But there is an opportunity at some point to transition into the third mountain. And the third mountain is all about them. So it's me, us, and them. And the third mountain is about creating a space in your life, or dedicating your life to helping others in one form or another. And for me, I think that is the place that I have chosen to step into more and more. And I still, when I get insecure and I get scared and I get scarce, I oscillate not just back onto the second mountain, but I almost feel some days I go back to the first mountain again. And I used to judge that, but now I just catch myself and I kind of the pendulum a little bit. And again, I'm not too attached at any particular point, but I like to spend as much of my time in the them mountain. In other words, how can I show up in the world? Who do I need to become? What is the thing that I want and need to say in the world? How can I put myself out there? Because I think all of us want to be visible in some respects, but then visibility scares the shit out of us. So when I think about visibility, there's a part of me wants to hide from the world. But when I think about the work that I want to do and the impact through the lens of them, then visibility is something that needs to be a part of my life. But I can justify it, rationalize it, get my head around it, and find the courage to do that, because it's not for me. It's not even for us, but it's for somebody that I may not have even met yet. And that gives me the courage to stand on a stage or do a video and so on and so forth. And then what are you doing on the third mountain? And this is maybe a part of it I wasn't going to share, but I might as well just share it and throw it out there. I do believe that the cycle of kind of self-healing, if you like, assuming we go on a journey where we look at our story and we look at the pain that we've had, and we look at the tragedies that we've gone through, and we look at the loss, and we look at all the things, we go through all the different phases, and we go through denial, and we go through acceptance, and then we get angry, and then we get sad, and then we break through to this place where we begin to realize that the pain that we went through, as difficult as this may be for many of us to realize or to accept or to agree with, for that matter, has to have had a purpose. Otherwise, what's the point? And that was a very difficult transition, because what it meant was I had to let go of being a victim, and I had to step into this idea that actually the shit that I've gone through actually had a purpose bigger and wider than myself. And there's great solace in knowing that actually the shit that I went through actually has a purpose. And now I can bottle that and I can bring that to the world in one form or another. So essentially, what am I saying here is that I think the greatest purpose of all, the greatest purpose of all, leaving religion and bringing children into this world, etc., which are fundamental for many, if not humanity in general, is to help people move through or deal with the pain and the suffering that you yourself experienced. I don't think there's any greater purpose in the world than taking the pain that you've gone through. It requires so much maturity. It requires so much wisdom. It requires so much awareness. It requires so much extraordinary amounts of courage to face our own suffering and get to a point where we don't spiritually bypass it. We move through the layers of it to a point at which we'll never fully heal, but that we have the courage to take our pain and to bring it to humanity in a way to help other people, to ease suffering for others, or to help them move through, accelerate that process, and or potentially even avoid the pain and the suffering we went through. So as an example, if you went into bankruptcy in a business and you experienced tremendous amounts of shame around that, rather than hide that from the world, what if you were to speak about the shame and speak about the embarrassment and speak about the thing that the pain and the suffering that's as your identity became shattered, as your ego got annihilated, all of these different things, to normalize it for others who are afraid to speak about it also. To normalize it so when someone is considering going into bankruptcy, as an example, that they don't have to feel the burden and the shame. They can do it and go, you know what, I'm not on my own. That's an example, a very simple example of taking the shame and the suffering and the pain that you've been through and supporting humanity with it. And what it does is it actually transforms the energy that we hold, because we are holding it in our body. So it actually transforms us. So the last mountain, the them mountain, it isn't about us, but we are the beneficiaries of it. By helping society, we actually benefit tremendously by it. And that's what I mean by the third mountain. I think the most important journey, and there's no judgment in terms of where you are, what mountain you're on. If you're on mountain 1, that's fine. You're on mountain 2. I do find that mountain 2, we overstay our welcome, and we wonder why, no matter how much success we create on the second mountain, there's something off. And if there's something off, and you own a coffee shop business, like a chain of coffee shops, and there's something off, and you've opened 10 coffee shops, and there's something off, just sit with the offness. Don't go and open another 10 coffee shops because you feel restless. The restlessness is your body or your soul whispering to you, this is not enough. This is not enough. This is not for you. And it doesn't mean that what you've done is insignificant. It's wonderful. It doesn't mean you have to burn it down or sell it or shut it down. It just means that there's a transitional element that needs to happen at some point in the future. And listen to the whisper. Otherwise, it becomes a roar. And then finally, the universe slaps you across the face. And I think we've all experienced that in one form or another. So I'll finish with this. I was in a room once with a group of successful business owners. And one man pointed out to one other individual in the room. Let's call him John. And they said, but isn't John like just perfectly poised in terms of purpose and passion profitability, everything else. John has this amazing business. It does a lot of good in the world. It helps a lot of people. It's a medical device, let's just call it. And it's making a huge impact in the world, and it allows him to build this business and bring this medical device to millions of people and to help them better their lives. And it's not just a win-win-win situation for everybody. It's not just perfect. Like, shouldn't that be the aspiration? And I said, maybe. And he goes, what do you mean maybe? I said, well, it depends. I said, depends on what? Well, it depends, and all hinges on one question, and more importantly, the answer to that question. And he goes, well, what's the question and what's the answer? And I said, well, let's ask him. I said, John, is it okay if I ask you a question? He goes, yeah. I said, if this is all you do for the next 20 years, will it have been enough? And he looked at me without missing a beat and said, no. No, it will not be enough. Not that it's not significant in its own right, but deep down, he knows that apart from this organization, there's something burning in his soul. There's something whispering. There's something awakening. There's something dormant inside of him that he is yet, that itch that he is yet to scratch. It doesn't mean he has to execute it on tomorrow morning. It just means to be aware of its presence and not to over-architect and complicate his life, to never leave any type of bandwidth and spaciousness and room for this thing to emerge. It could be a full-time gig, but it also could be him writing on a Friday morning. It could be him doing something on a Wednesday evening. It doesn't have to be his whole vocation. It just means that there's something stirring. And for me, it's like every so often, John should just pull the thread gently, write about this. What is that thing? What is emerging? What am I being asked and called for to do or to become in the world from a place of abundance rather than a place of scarcity? That's what the third mountain is all about. That's why you're sitting here potentially listening to this, watching this, having built something or in the midst of building something and knowing that there's something off. It is your soul whispering to you, hey, buddy, this is great. But you and I both know this is not going to be, the last dance, so to speak. There's something else emerging. Let's carve out some genuine sacredness, sacred time to shine a light on this. And if you want to do that, come to Ireland, come to the Brave Castle, hang out here and explore that thing with me. Allow me to bring that out of you so humanity can be a better place. And if that's not available to you, that's okay. Do it on your own. It's a little trickier, but at least carve out the space and ask yourself some better questions. And join us at the very least on a Brave Conversation one of these days and have a conversation with us and with yourself around things that perhaps have been left on the peripheral for far too long. Anyway, lots of love. Take care. And thank you for listening. And please share this if it's of value. And if there's somebody you know needs to listen to this, that'd be great. Take care. Bye.